Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next session here at Connections Post-CES, Innovation and 2024 Trends. I'm Daniel Holcomb, Senior Analyst in the Smart Home space at Parks Associates, and today's session, I will be talking about some of the news that came out of CES, as well as the latest trends in connected smart home solutions. After my talk, please stick around for our fireside chat with Jen and Elizabeth and our panel. Before we get started, I want to thank our Connections 2024 sponsors. This is our 20th year doing this panel, and we could not do this without them. Our sponsors for this session include Cost Communities, NICE, Ivani, Catus Smart Lock Solutions, Kwikset, Rapid Response Monitoring, Skybell, Shelly, Alarm.com, SmartThings, Beckler, Calix, Responder, and Origin. I'd also like to draw your attention to our in-person Connections event, May 7th through 9th, 2024. Feel free to put that on your calendar and submit to speak at that event. Since we are talking about CES 2024, I'd also like to highlight our sponsors of that event. It was a very successful event, and we all learned a lot. At CES, we spoke on a number of our sessions about the role of tech and multifamily living, including new expectations and consumer demand, how to monetize technology, which has to happen given the large investments in service requirements, and the integration of different systems along with innovative technology. We addressed the home security market, including the shift in market dynamics, new applications and services as a result of the attached devices to the system, and the ongoing idea and shift to hardware as a service. We also talked about energy management and the incredible transformation that is taking place, the paradigm shift to renewable energy, where devices and energy management systems will be at the center in many ways, creating demand response opportunities for utilities. We had the opportunity to hear from Mark Benson, head of Samsung SmartThings, and all they are doing to innovate and connect the various ecosystems in the smart home together. We hosted a session on the challenges of building a consumer IoT business, including strategies, business models, and how to stay competitive. Security and privacy were very much top of mind throughout the event, and we had a session focused on balancing the data security with usability, as well as navigating the regulations and disruption with new AI technologies. Finally, we hosted a session that was focused on the new user and market expanding beyond innovators and early adopters. This has new requirements for the marketing, interface, and support systems as well. Our team went to CES, and here are 5 key trends that we saw. The first is the move closer to mass market. According to Parks Associates data, more smart home buyers are now identifying as mainstream technology users. In addition, nearly 30% of US internet households now have 3 or more smart home devices, according to new research from Parks Associates. This shift necessitates a change in product development, marketing, and sales strategies as companies aim to appeal to a broader audience beyond tech-savvy individuals. The latest research from Parks Associates reveals a stabilization in the growth of connected home device purchases, yet highlights a continued opportunity for expansion in services. The smart home buyer journey study that Parks Associates conducted indicates that the early majority, a concept from Geoffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm, which describes a critical mass in technology adoption, now comprises 33% of smart home adopter households. Previously, that was limited to innovators and early adopters. The challenge now for smart home companies is how to bring on a late majority and laggard adopters. Many of the laggard adopters include those over age 65. At CES, it's evident that technology truly is for everyone, with the fundamental role of broadband in homes highlighted by Parks Associates data showing 92% of homes now connected, complemented by the rise of mobile phones, has surpassed TV ownership in US households, which is a significant shift in the way we interact with technology has implications for how the future will be with the smart home. A second trend that we saw at CES was the trend towards interoperability and next-gen products. The role of the Matter protocol in 2024 is crucial for smart home integration. Despite its potential for interoperability, the success of Matter faces some challenging headwinds due to the hesitance of some companies to share data openly. The Connectivity Standards Alliance, which came up with Matter, is having to manage expectations about the rollout and the deployment of Matter in smart home devices, while simultaneously balancing both the consumer concerns and the concerns of the industry. The future of the interoperable smart home ecosystems hinges on striking that balance. And in addition to this, we'll also see interoperability continue through the rise of generative AI, which has the potential not only to increase the functionality of things like smart video doorbells, but also to create a point of differentiation for other smart home devices. Right now, of course, generative AI is in its infancy, but we will see it progress, and smart home companies will have to maintain a leading edge in the development of that technology. At CES in Las Vegas, we saw that Samsung and LG Electronics highlighted artificial intelligence as a central element of their strategy, showcasing a range of AI-enhanced smart home appliances and robots. Both companies emphasize the potential of AI to revolutionize the user experience, with LG focused on AI's real-world applications and Samsung focused more on making AI safer and more inclusive. At CES 2024, several significant announcements were made regarding products that comply with the new Matter protocol. And it was recently announced before CES that Connectivity Standards Alliance has introduced a new smart home standard for smart locks known as Aliro. And we will see more coming out about that probably in future CES conferences. A third trend that we saw at CES was significant discussion around the importance of professional support in the smart home sector, partially because of return rates, but mostly because of growing complexity in the smart home. There's a need to make sure that tradespeople and professional services will be implemented as a crucial component in installing and maintaining more complex smart home systems. In one of Parks Associates' panels, a panelist highlighted at CES the importance of making the process of support and maintenance a simplified thing for the end consumer, especially as we start to see more early majority and late majority folks adopt smart home technology. His comment was that people need one number to call, one button to press, to make it as simple as possible to not only adopt the smart home technology, but to keep it. At CES, we saw a number of solutions working to help consumers manage the complexity of the smart home, including Oliver IQ, who launched a smart home as a service company, and also Daisy, an installation and maintenance company for the smart home. A fourth trend that we saw at CES was the importance of smart home devices in energy management, both in the home and for the grid as a whole. Energy utilities can call upon smart home devices to turn back their energy use when there is too much demand on the grid through demand response programs. They also provide consumers with more information about their own energy use. Parks Associates data shows that consumers value the ability to see how much energy each device uses and the ability to check their energy use in real time. So this is becoming very critical. And later today, we have a Smart Energy Summit to discuss more about smart energy use in the home and how these tools are being implemented to help with that. At CES, we saw that Tesla and Samsung have announced that they are collaborating to innovate energy management in the homes, which itself was a major announcement. Another major announcement was the Home Connectivity Alliance announcing the HCA Interface Specification 1.0, which establishes an industry standard for cloud-to-cloud interoperability across long-life appliances, HVAC systems, and TVs within the connected home ecosystem. A fifth and final trend that we saw at CES that we would like to point out is the importance of privacy and data problems. Parks Associates data showed in 2018 that 36% of consumers were reporting a privacy or security issue in the last 12 months with smart home devices. In Q2 of 2023, that number was 54%, a significant jump. CES, we saw that addressed significantly with several panels with legislators that discussed things like federal data privacy laws to try to keep up with the potential of data and security breaches in the smart home. Of particular concern is the implications of AI for data privacy, whether it can protect users' privacy or be another point of vulnerability. CES had a number of gadgets that were showcased that could potentially be potentially protect your privacy and security within the space utilizing AI. Those are the top trends we noted that we wanted to share. And just to recap what we just discussed, we talked about at CES more mainstream consumers buying and moving past the early adopters and innovators, and how we go further beyond that. The interoperability of next-gen products, including Matter standards, the Alero standard, and AI. The concerns around returns and support and how you simplify that for consumers. Devices that enable distributed energy and can be called upon for demand response programs, and privacy and data problems that are now a serious concern in the smart home and with the rise of AI. Up next, Jennifer Kent, our VP of Research, and Elizabeth Parks, our President and CMO, will have a fireside chat to discuss these trends in greater detail. And we would like to also encourage you to check out our other conferences. We host many every year, and you can not only attend, but you can submit to speak as a subject matter expert. We love bringing people together at these conferences. Thank you so much for your time.
Welcome back. That was a great presentation from Daniel, highlighting some of the things that we talked about at Connection Summit at CES and some of the things that we saw on the show floor. I'm Elizabeth Parks. I'm the President and CMO of Parks Associates, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to continue the conversation. I'm so excited to have Jennifer Kent, Parks Associates Vice President of Research, joining us today. She and I are going to share a little bit more about some of the things we saw, extending the conversation that we just heard from Daniel. And so, Jennifer, I'm so excited to welcome you today. Thank you for joining us. And there's a lot to talk about at CES. So let's go ahead and get going and see if we can start off with, some of your general impressions about the show. I know we had an awesome turnout for the Connection Summit sessions and our party, and it was really exciting to go around looking at the show floor at some of the latest innovations in the smart home, as well as entertainment and health areas. So why don't you tell us a little bit of what your first impressions were and maybe some top takeaways to start?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Elizabeth, thanks for having me on to share a little bit about what I saw. And we, like you mentioned, we had a fantastic Connection Summit at CES. It's also about what I learned, as in a research role. I'm at CES, to create and make relationships, but I really want to see for the year what might impact the markets that we cover, right? Who is new? What established players have something to announce? Who's not exhibiting? What can I learn from folks on panels? And it didn't disappoint. I actually really, really just enjoyed my time at CES this year. Sometimes it's more work than play, but I really had fun seeing everything out there on the show floor. I'd say, first impressions are that, first of all, CES just continues to be such a range of companies and products that, and really services now, that you don't even have to have a product to be out there on the floor, right? You're showcasing your service, your solution, your brand, what it's all about. And, we saw things from smart home and security and energy over to connected health. Of course, entertainment being a core aspect of the Consumer Electronics Show. It always has. But not just devices, also streaming services. We saw the biggest players in streaming there, from Netflix to Disney, Fubo, focusing on sports. I think I saw the NFL was there. So auto manufacturers came back. So there just continues to be this huge range of companies and wealth of knowledge. So I'm very excited to start my year that way and to get kind of an eye on what are going to be the trends and what we really need to keep our focus on. I might just say on the smart home and security side specifically, I thought it was kind of an interesting year. I think there were a lot of announcements made last year, some big players that sometimes have substantial presences on the floor, like ADT and Alarm.com and Razoo did not exhibit. They were there, they had a presence, they were hosting meetings, and Alarm.com I saw over at PepCom, which is one of the media events. But I think on the smart home security side, a little bit more of a sense of a year of execution, that they've have strategies and pivots that they've announced in the past few years, and now it's all about executing. So those are my first impressions from CES.
Okay, well, great. Well, the buzzword of all buzzwords maybe for 2023 was artificial intelligence, AI. And so I think that's going to continue in 2024. I want to start off there and tell me maybe if you can highlight some of the things that you're seeing, this idea that hardware is coming with new value as a result of that AI technology that's getting embedded. What were some of the examples of what might be innovative in this area at this year's CES?
Yeah, sure. Where to start? So AI definitely was talked about by anybody and everybody, essentially, who's trying to put AI to use to improve the value or functionality of their product or service. I think some of the AI technology that's going to be most impactful on consumer tech or multifamily tech markets are actually the processes that are happening in the background. In their keynote, we saw Siemens talk about how they are integrating their Mendix low-code platform with Amazon's Bedrock service. And their Amazon's Bedrock service essentially offers a choice of AI models from leading AI companies in a single API. So you bring in this ability to have this sort of low-code platform with a choice of AI models. And the idea is to open up the accessibility of AI development for all sorts of different kinds of businesses and applications. I mean, we really are just at the start of how companies are going to be implementing AI technologies. And so some of the stuff that's happening behind the scenes sometimes is the most exciting, because you can see how so many of the different companies we saw are going to wind up building off of those types of technologies. And we'll see what comes of that in future CESs. So I love to see the really early behind the scenes, integrations that are happening. At our own Connection Summit, we heard quite a bit about AI. Certainly companies using AI to apply to a variety of different data types coming from a variety of different sensors to better understand context in the home, to better understand consumer behavior, to better authenticate who is in the home or identify people who are in the home, which is so important, because it's those types of advanced understanding of who is in the home and why they're there and what they're doing that enables this potential experience where my home is making really intelligent decisions, and smart home isn't just another job on me and I have to control a bunch of things, right? So a lot of talking about how we're continuing to use AI to make things better, to do things in a more automated, intelligent way.
Well, and those sensors seem to be showing up everywhere, and that new context is, providing value and use cases across really all the vertical markets that we cover in our research, everything from home security, playing that really important role with understanding what's going on in the environment with an alarm that might be going off, to energy and data analytics. So was there highlights on the privacy and security side anywhere in the sessions we hosted? I know that's an important topic, that the 17 connected devices in an average household now. And so as the complexity grows, so do those vulnerabilities. So is there anything that you might want to give a shout out from the privacy data security side?
Yeah, just to start that, everyone was at least talking about the recognition that with more connected devices and products in our lives, there are more vulnerabilities. We have to take data security and data privacy really, really seriously. We heard it from the LG keynote at CES, talking about how especially AI needs to be, quote, I've pull the quote up so that I want to get this wrong, accountable for its decisions and actions. It should be working equally well for all users, promoting safe and intended behavior. We hear sometimes about AI's ability to hallucinate. So the fact that it's working in a way that's intended and safe, that it's securing personal data and controlling access to it. Quote, you, the customer, should be in control, because only when you're in control can you live your life to the fullest. It was really great to hear that from LG. We also heard that at Connection Summit as well. We had a whole panel on privacy and data security. And I love this concept from our speaker from Nandi Security, talking about how, of course, all of the companies working in connected products need to be, working at the absolute, not just the bare minimum of security controls, but really working at the highest possible level, but also the need to educate consumers too. And that we need to, again, quote here, develop a cyber hygiene muscle memory, right? That consumers also are aware of and thinking about cybersecurity when they're purchasing products, and how they might be able to distinguish a product that has gone the extra mile on securing, it from design to how it shares data, et cetera. So I thought that was really fantastic.
Well, and we keep seeing the government, trying to figure out perhaps how to create these protections across the whole United States. And so I know there were some efforts in DC, even while we were in Vegas, where this discussion of data security continues on and is an important one. So clearly a big problem in the connected home space and for businesses as well. I mean, this is a real threat to people's data, privacy, and security. So I want to change the conversation and move a little bit into interoperability. I mean, it goes along with data security and privacy in the sense of an exchange of information across different devices, across ecosystems, across clouds, or whether that data is staying on the edge. So a lot of this also has to do with that interoperability piece and whether these systems and devices can even talk to each other. So Matter, of course, we've been hearing about Matter since it started a few years back, and wanted to get your take on what you saw with Matter, as well as the HCA group and some of the things that they're announced, particularly around energy data.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I'm actually going to start with that data security piece. We actually heard again at Connection Summit at CES from Michelle Mandela-Freeman at the Connectivity Standards Alliance about their ongoing work to create a superset of data security requirements. She shared, and I didn't realize this, so this is a point of learning for me, that there are 40 to 50 different requirement sets globally for how a product could be, legally, essentially keeping consumers' data secure and private. And so that's a real big load on manufacturers who are working globally. And so the CSA is working to develop a superset of requirements that could be cross-recognized globally to try to, dramatically improve the process for OEMs. Now that's a separate effort from Matter, but since we're talking about data security, I thought I might mention that was a point of learning for me. On the Matter side, we did continue to see some products that were announced with Matter embedded. So Eve was one that got a lot of attention, becoming the first wall outlet with Matter. It also does, to your point, offer energy insights, but only inside its app. The Matter standard doesn't yet allow for energy monitoring insights to come through the Matter standard to other control apps. But great to see that product. I also saw at PepCom, I met with the Akara team who released its next generation hub that does have a Matter controller embedded in a thread border router. So a few different types of companies that were announcing new Matter products. We also heard, interestingly, from a manufacturer in the irrigation control market who said, we really want to release our next irrigation controller, but we're not going to release it until the Matter standard for irrigation controllers is ready. We think it's that important that we actually are going to delay our product release until we can get Matter out. So manufacturers are paying attention. We see this sort of drip of companies that are bringing products to market. But there are other interoperability offerings and other ways that organizations are looking to work together to move the puck forward, whether it's outside of Matter. So you mentioned the HCA. That's the Home Connectivity Alliance, which is supported by several major appliance OEMs. So Samsung, GE, Frigidaire, Trane. I think Midea just announced as part of CES that they had joined. Also some companies like American Standard, Resideo, all involved. So major appliance manufacturers, appliances even of things of HVAC, of boilers, right, of the big almost infrastructure type pieces of a building, a multifamily property, a home. And one thing that they announced was the ability through their standard to share energy consumption data. So the ability to offer energy usage insights that can, empower the consumers to actually understand how much energy their appliances are using. We see this in our data demand for not just the monthly insights you might have on the bill you get from your utility, but if I'm going to really make a better effort and have a better ability to control or optimize my energy use at home, it would be really great to understand which of my devices is using how much energy at what time, and to not make that very difficult for me to see. And so the HCA standard is an opportunity for appliance manufacturers to share those energy insights much more easily, and for consumers to have much greater insight into their energy consumption by device.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing all that. Really interesting. And I know we've got sessions going on this afternoon about what trends we're seeing in energy management and what we expect to see and talk about at Distributech at the end of February, which is where we're co-locating our 15th annual Smart Energy Summit. So if you're in that space, we'd love for you to join this afternoon on the virtual sessions and then also in person. Jen, we've got some questions, so sure. I'm going to take those now if that's okay for you. Let me start off with, there's a question about ADT's platform. And so the question is whether the ADT Plus platform was announced and the professional install rolled out at this year. And I believe that it is now available, but I'm not sure if you have any specific updates on that. Otherwise, we can always follow up with that person who's got the question.
Yeah, I don't have specific insights there. I thought that the professional install, was rolled out as well, but happy to follow up with that and to confirm that. Yeah, you're right that ADT did not also, they did not showcase on the floor this year, but they did have a presence, and I know that they had some meeting rooms. In fact, I was so happy to have John Buttram, who is heading up their multifamily effort on one of my panels, and it's really interesting to see how many companies like ADT and others that maybe started on the consumer space really expanding into multifamily because they see the opportunity to scale there. There are several different layers of value for professional installation, professional support, professional monitoring for a building and a property manager and a property owner, that really holds its value in the multifamily space. So that's what we heard from ADT and their presence at CES.
Yeah, and I had Naveen join on my panel, celebrating the 150th year in business for ADT this year. I mean, there is a lot to celebrate, and they are in, I'd say, a great transformation, but with safety and security at its core, and figuring out how to move those legacy systems subscribers into the new world of interactive services. So very interesting. The next question we have here is about interoperability. So somebody said, great stats on the 17 devices. Do you know if they are all interoperable, or are there certain use cases sticky enough to stand on their own and warrant their own app? And so this is getting back to the core question here is about the app and the user interface. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. So those 17 devices are most certainly not interoperable today in the sense that that's just an average of how many connected devices consumers have in their home. And in fact, the majority of those devices are not smart home devices. The majority of those devices are mobile, computing, entertainment, consumer electronics, gaming devices. Also security, smart home, energy, connected health devices, right? So we see those new emerging categories growing, but you really have to think about the wide expanse of devices that are present in consumers' homes, and they represent brands from all sorts of different categories that are solving all sorts of different pain points and providing different types of services, again, like from entertainment all the way to health. Unless there's a real reason today for a health device to interact with an entertainment device, you don't see a lot of interoperability there. Now, there's fantastic use cases and routines for those things to happen. For instance, LG has invented the independent platform so that you could actually do telehealth and care for older loved ones directly through the TV. So those integrations absolutely happen, but most of the time today, it is through partnerships and one-on-one integrations and API integrations. And that's a lot of what Matter is trying to solve, is to make that interoperability a lot greater. Most of the buying we see in our data remains sort of point solutions to solve a specific problem. So the core use cases have traditionally been in the smart home proper, have been peace of mind, safety and security type use cases. So video doorbells and smart cameras are the best adopted solutions in the smart home. And then thermostats and lighting and access control, so locks and garage door openers, are also sort of the leaders in the ability in uptake, which can speak to their ability to provide value on their own. But we do think, and I think a lot of the industry leaders think, that there's so much more to be unlocked here with things working better together.
Great. And, we've got another follow-up question. This will, I think, maybe the last question specific to Matter, but it's here. And so it's actually an interesting comment question. So here you go. You have to wonder if the Matter window of opportunity has already run its course. Not to say it's irrelevant, but I think it's going to be an uphill battle for Matter to be perceived as a must-have feature, which I do think is important because it's taken so long to get Matter compliant products to market. So I think the question is, does Matter matter? And, we were talking about this even earlier today in our own prep call. So please share some of your views here.
Yeah, I think that in general, when you follow the market as long as we have, standards efforts take a really long time. I think people expected to see quicker rollouts than they have. So that's some of the reaction that you're hearing there. In the conversations I've had with smaller manufacturers, specifically at CES, as well as I was so honored to be able to attend the Groove Technology Summit last week, which focuses a little bit more on the multifamily technology and their platform specifically and their vendors. But getting to talk to a variety of different smaller manufacturers, in general, they're still telling us that they plan to adopt Matter. They feel like it will be a necessity, and they frankly think it will be the right thing to do by their customers to allow them to have the choice of control. So they don't want to make that choice for their end user, that their application is the only application that they can use to work with their product. But we hear a variety of things. There are definitely larger players who are really nervous or working through or hesitant because they don't want to share certain data that really would challenge their business model today. Very great business thinking and strategy around, well, if I allow others to be able to see the data within my ecosystem, right, that breaks down a barrier, breaks down a core service that I'm delivering today. So why would I accept Matter if that's going to break down or directly challenge the business that I'm offering today? Maybe one other example I might give on the entertainment side. So we did see one of the biggest Matter announcements at CES wasn't on the smart home side proper in the sense of, core smart home, safety, security, energy, but thinking about the connected home and from a larger perspective was actually Amazon's announcement of Matter casting support. So Amazon announced the ability for consumers to cast Prime Video, the Prime Video streaming application, to Fire TVs and Echo shows using Matter for casting. Now, what's really interesting there is this is a very competitive way for them to get up to speed with competitors they frankly were lagging. So Google already has Chromecast and has for years and years. Apple already has Apple AirPlay and has for years and years. And so Matter has allowed Amazon to catch up with a casting technology that its competitors sort of already had. And so I think that I don't know if it's that we've missed the window on Matter. I think that things are getting real. So the reality of, okay, if an open standard is here, what does that mean for my business model and how do I compete now? So I think that this actually gets now to business model strategy and execution.
Yes, and there is a lot to talk about there with Matter and how it's moving forward and its progression. We've got some other questions there, but I think given time, if anybody has any questions about Matter, we'd love to talk with you. So feel free to reach out to Jennifer or to me directly if you'd like to hear some more thoughts on that. There is lots to talk about, and we think it's a great initiative, and it is part of the evolution of the home. It's not just the smart home, it's the home and all the consumer electronics and hardware, the manufacturing, getting on board to talk to each other. So the age-old problem of interoperability is still there. Jen, there's so many things that I want to get through here in approximately 3 minutes. So let me see if you can maybe do some quick touch points. I've got another couple of questions as well, but they sort of tie into what I was going to ask. So anything about the television and the smart home and the connection there between entertainment and then the automation control security side of the house?
Sure. We definitely saw we are seeing more smart TVs become hubs. So Samsung, LG, Hisense, and others becoming connected home platforms or integrating connected home platforms in some way. I thought Samsung SmartThings new map interface showing your devices on your TV, and I think also in the app, right, from a map user interface as opposed to just a list of devices is such a good example of just a little change in design that can actually make a really big difference in how users think about and interact with their home. We've been saying for years that there needs to be more thinking about the TV and entertainment as part of the smart home value proposition. People absolutely prioritize and spend on their entertainment experiences in the home, and especially for older consumers tend to spend far more time with and on their TV. And so it's a very natural user interface point for older consumers. And in fact, I'd say, I know we only have 3 minutes, so the big thing I wanted to mention that we haven't mentioned is I thought the other big theme at CES was, and Daniel talked about it a little bit, but was this move to thinking about the mass market for smart homes. So our data clearly shows that the users of smart home tech today do not look like the users of smart home tech from 5 years ago before the pandemic. Yes, they still have higher tech affinity than the general population, but you have so many more consumers and households now that are in that sort of early majority. They can see the value of tech, but they are not running out to get it first, coming to buy smart home technology. And so they're looking for very practical benefits and for things to just work. And some of the announcements that you heard from Oliver IQ, from even the TV getting into.
Sorry to interrupt, but can you expand on Oliver IQ? Because that was another question that came in. And so,
sure.
Sorry.
Okay. Sure. No problem. So Oliver IQ was a new big kind of platform that made a big splash, had a big presence at CES. And it's essentially another shot at the mass market, right? It's a smart home platform, but tailored designed for organizations that can scale the smart home and provide professional services around it, including installation, including support, remote support, especially I think ISPs and telcos. And we've seen other ISPs, internet service providers, and telcos try to get in the smart home space before, much, much earlier in the market, and not have a lot of success, except for Comcast Xfinity, who's still there and offering a smart home and security play. And when you think about telcos and ISPs, their whole business is about scale. They offer extremely mature services, essentially, to an enormous percentage of the population. And so smart home tech early in the game, I think, was a little bit too niche and wasn't ready for a large enough play. Oliver IQ is essentially trying to bring back a platform that ISPs and other big players can use to have a much broader, more mass market type of approach, recognizing that households might be ready for that now. However, again, you're serving households at scale that are not hobbyists, that are folks who just want to go about their day-to-day and want their things to work and want somebody who's going to help them when they don't. So that was my big takeaway from seeing Oliver IQ. I got to go by their booth. And so I think another pointing towards the maturity of this market and a little bit more expansion to a mass market buyer.
Well, yeah, and also significant that the leadership at that group is from Control 4, where they serve the uber ultra luxurious segment of the market, and they see this big opportunity to bring things downstream for the everyday Joe Schmo, right, to be able to control their products in their home, and why not? And so we'll definitely be following some of the things that they're covering. We have time for no questions, but I'll give you another minute because I think we're very close to out of time. So anything you want to say on water or wearables or any other of the innovations in energy? So, and then that'll end our time for today. And next time we'll be talking for an hour since we have so much to talk about.
Yeah. Which one do I want to pick? So I will just say that I'll be talking about energy at Smart Energy Summit later this afternoon. So come back for energy thoughts. On wearables, I think the two main things on wearables that I'd love to share are, one, on the security side, more interest in companies in this space talking about expanding personal security, not just thinking about it as a PERS panic button for very frail older buyers, but for lone workers, for those who are, fitness enthusiasts, hikers, anybody really who is looking for peace of mind and emergency response where they are. So thinking about wearables, and those form factors can come in all sorts of ways: smart jewelry and rings and glasses and keychains and all sorts of things when you think about personal security. So love to see some more evolution there. And then I got to try Alexa smart glasses, which I loved because it's an example of a little stair step. There's still a lot of development that needs to happen in AR and VR before we're really there. They're very expensive, typically solutions right now, but I love the open ear earphones. And so I got to try the Alexa smart glasses, which is not trying to do overlays and anything visual. It's about having a smart audio experience in your frames. And I thought I love to see these stair step improvements that help consumers familiarize themselves with a new type of experience without going so far afield that it's really hard to understand how that would work into your life. So I might be the next smart glasses user. I don't know.
Well, that's great. And I saw the pictures of you with those on. So thought that was really cool. Jen, of course, we value your everything that you do for Parks Associates and leading our research work. And it was great to hear from you on some of the things you saw at CES. So thanks for joining us. And if you're in our audience, if you hold on for just a minute, we'll be right back with an amazing discussion next with some of the industry players who are going to share what they're seeing this year and what they saw at CES. So give us just 1 minute and we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Thank you so much for continuing on with us for our first Connections virtual series of the year. We heard from Parks Associates research analysts share some of the things that we were sharing at our Connections Summit, and then a discussion with Jennifer Kent, our VP of Research. And now I'm very excited to be back again. I'm Elizabeth Parks. I hope I've met you before. If not, let's connect on LinkedIn. And excited to have this group of industry players join us to talk about some of the things that they saw at CES and some of the innovation that's taking place across really all different segments of the connected home and extending beyond the home, even within the healthcare environment. And so very excited to have Alarm.com, Plumerai, XRHealth, Chefling, and Ivani join me for this next session. We're going to be talking about what it means to be moving past the innovator stage and how to reach these new buyers. Also, the new value that is being created through devices, data, and the services that stem from them. And then, of course, the future of tech is all about AI. And so this will be a big part of our discussion today, how these companies are weaving AI into the new solutions and also how they view the market coming forward. So I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves for 30 seconds, and then we'll go into our questions. If you're in the audience, please go ahead. Feel free to put any questions in the chat or the Q&A, and I will take those as the conversation goes. So, Steve, I'm really excited to welcome you today. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and Alarm.com.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, I'm Steve Chazin. I'm Vice President of Products for Alarm.com. I've been here for about 6 years. I focus on our business intelligence, artificial intelligence, next-gen products, and wellness solutions. And we used CES as an opportunity to launch a few new things in that space, but also learn about the trends that are impacting the consumers that are having their lives impacted by these new technologies. So I'm excited to talk about what we learned and discuss the trends with my fellow panelists.
Great. We appreciate you being here. And if you're not following Steve on LinkedIn, he puts out a great blog and on all things CES otherwise too. So we appreciate you being here. Next up, we have Roeland with Plumerai. Roeland, thank you so much for joining. We're excited to have you in the conversation.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I'm Roeland, and the CEO of Plumerai and co-founder. So we're headquartered in the UK with offices in London and Amsterdam. And Plumerai offers a full AI solution for smart home cameras and video doorbells. So currently that's people detection, vehicle detection, pet detection, but also familiar face identification and stranger identification. Because we're able to run AI on device, which is important for privacy compliance, and truly with unmatched accuracy, we've won several major US-based video doorbell smart home camera companies as our customers. So if you go to the retail stores of Walmart and Best Buy, you'll see smart home camera products with our software in them. And I'm excited to talk in this panel about the trends that we're seeing with our customers in the smart home camera and video doorbell domain.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us. Definitely a lot to talk about. That context and awareness of what's going on is really critical for next steps, especially in security. We also have Eran Orr with XRHealth. So thanks for joining us today. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me. Eran Orr, founder and CEO of XRHealth. We are using virtual reality, augmented reality, and the new buzzword special computing in order to treat patients. We have over 150 different types of applications for a variety of use cases, from physical therapy, occupational therapy, to mental health and pain management. Two business models. One is we are using the technology or basically selling the technology to hospitals and rehab centers. And the other line of business is we have our own virtual clinics where we are shipping headsets to patient home and treating them remotely. We completed over 500,000 VR treatments to date, conducting VR treatment every 7 minutes, operations in the US, Australia, Europe. And I'm very excited about this panel about the future of this technology and how it fit in nicely with all the new other technologies, including AI, which I'll discuss more later on.
Okay, great. Thanks for being here. We're excited to hear more from you as well. And next we have Jeff, the co-founder of Chefling. So Jeff, welcome. Go ahead and share a little bit more about yourself and the company that you co-founded.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is co-founder of Chefling. We focus in the connected kitchen space, and we also used to develop a pure software solution to help users manage their home inventory and trying to streamline their kitchen workflow. And ever since the company was acquired in 2022, we started developing a hardware device, which is a camera and can be used to detect your food items in your fridge or your pantry. And with the computer vision technology, we aim to automate the entire inventory management for housekeeping. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're excited to hear from you, and especially, taking something and creating new. I mean, you're doing something that really is exactly what we're talking about as far as innovation, taking hardware, creating meaning out of it, and then attaching the service because of the information that you can get and what you can do with that data. So very excited to have you join us today. Also, we have Matthew Wootton. He is with Ivani, the co-founder and CTO. So Matt, thank you again for joining us. We're always excited to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks for having me as always. Ivani, we're a technology provider that created this tech we call Sensify, which is a means of deploying occupancy sensing through firmware and software updates to existing wireless communication devices. Basically, the ability to deploy sensing, at crazy scale that you can do with software, and seeing what that means for OEMs that weren't previously offering sensing at that scale, and creating outcomes like providing home security, convenience use cases, et cetera, to devices that weren't doing it previously. Excited to see what it's like lighting up millions of devices over the next year, and again, interested in the trends and being part of the conversation.
Great. Well, thank you for being here too. So we're going to start the conversation really focused in on moving past the innovator stage and even the early adopters. Then we're going to talk about the value of devices, the data, the different services, and also, of course, I think AI is going to be interweaved throughout our conversation as well. So I want to start off about this idea of being at a tipping point and really moving where technology becomes a standard part of consumers' lives, a standard as part of a workflow in serving consumers, perhaps with healthcare, an expectation of real-time data. I should be able to know what's going on right now because of technology. And I really want to start off in this idea of the standard of care with healthcare. This is a huge topic, and healthcare really is going to be and already being transformed because of technology. And so, Eran, if you can share a little bit more of what you're seeing, particularly maybe in the past couple of years with spatial computing, with that integration of technology as part of the therapy, and even how you came about that.
So I'll start with maybe a little bit of a higher point of view. I believe that we weren't meant to interact with computers using our thumb or using 2D interface. A lot of people believe this is the only way we ever communicated and interacted with computers, but we are living in a 3D environment, and I believe that this is how we'll interact with computers in the future. And when you're looking at healthcare specifically, it opens up a whole new set of possibilities, because a lot of things that are being done today in a very manual way, with no way to actually quantify processes in an experience which is basically the same as it was 200 years ago, I think spatial computing will open a lot of different types of capabilities. The problem that we have in the healthcare arena is that most of the business incentives and the economics around healthcare today are based on fee for service, which basically means that you're getting paid based on the number of minutes your clinician is conducting any type of service. And when you try to implement new technology, by definition, it takes back the productivity until the organization can actually utilize the technology to the full scale, because you have a learning curve like any other new technology. And in healthcare, no one want to take risks, so it's becoming even more problematic. But I have to say that after doing what we're doing for 8 years, because of the technology is getting better, cheaper, lighter, we are seeing more and more organizations implementing this technology at scale. And we are very, very optimistic, and we believe 2024 will be the tipping point of market adoption for this technology.
Sure, and in so many ways, it's a necessity in the sense of labor and just the ability to try to get to all the people who need care. I mean, there's just shortages everywhere, and so just as a quick follow-up question, I mean, as far as the idea of technology replacing humans or just really augmenting, Eran, do you have any comments on that? And then Steve, we'll come over to you next.
So I'll just not to steal the thunder of the entire panel, but I think it like in other use cases, it will be a process at the beginning. And as I'm telling our clinicians, our job is to turn them into super clinicians. Instead of treating one-on-one, they need to get to 1-to-100 or even 1-to-1,000 by utilizing technology. Having said that, moving forward 50 years from now, I completely see a scenario where you'll get psychology treatment by an AI, where you will have the look and feel of a psychologist. And overall, it will improve access, reduce cost, and help more people. But we still have a long way to go in regulation and reimbursement and liabilities. There's a lot of things we need to unlock. But first, let's try to utilize the technology that we have that it already exists in order to improve access and improve compliance and outcomes. And then we'll talk about what will happen 50 years from now.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. Steve, give us your view here on where we are with tipping points, the standardization of technology. I mean, being infused in everywhere, everything we do.
Yeah, first of all, Ron, I agree. I think the key word there is access. Almost another way to think about it is democratization. Most technology companies try to provide a new capability that gives normal humans superpowers. And if you think about the early days of computers, they were locked in rooms that only certain people could have, and now they're in our pockets. I think the same with healthcare. As far as tipping points, what's interesting is you look at the Geoffrey Moore curve that you showed earlier, and you showed about 33% of people in the smart home are in the middle. What you have to realize is the typical home is made up by a bunch of people on different parts of that curve. And you're in a tipping point when you no longer find the technology control through one human in that home. Many of us, if you've ever installed any new piece of technology, from a router to a oven, there's always some person in the home who knows how to use that better than other people. And everyone comes to that person for help. And the way you know this person is when the internet goes down, they're the ones who get blamed. When you're beyond the tipping point is when anyone can use that tool. And it's just a commonplace capability we take for granted. And so our phones are now those tools, when before we needed specialists to put them in our cars. But what's interesting about all of this is how quickly that changes, where you go from not having access to the tool to everybody having access to the tool to nobody having access because a new tool took that mantle. Think about cassette machines, CD players, DVDs, iPods, answering machines. These were all things that were invented in our generation that no longer exist because something else does a better job at that. That's what's so exciting about shows like CES, is you get to find those new things and get excited by how they're going to impact our world.
Well, and all this really requires a lot of education for the consumer, right? And it's a different consumer that you're selling to. And so, Matt, maybe we'll come over to you, and also I'd love to hear from Jeff and Roeland on this in terms of, creating familiarity around some of this is new stuff, completely new. Some of it is old stuff doing new things and providing new value. And so what are some of the ways to bring awareness and really market these new solutions to the consumer, or if they're buying through a specific channel, the security dealer, HVAC, whoever, you got to educate that channel as well.
Yeah, and it's a great point and an area of very active discussion. I know for us, as we look at deploying to millions of devices overnight that weren't previously a thing, we have to work with that partner to very explicitly sell collectively what we're capable of, and not oversell the capability, right? As technologists, right, we know what using a product is like, what its capabilities are. We also know what the roadmap is, but I think there's a tendency to want to sell the roadmap and not what's available today. The idea of you put AI as a brand and you slap it on something and you're like, oh yeah, that can solve any potential issue with it, is a current worrying trend that I see that seems a bit scary in the market at large. So for us, providing tools, illustrations, and examples, which include the sort of nitty-gritty, I think is really important, right? The idea of, this fanciful end state that, someone just comes home, they open the door, the lights turn on and whatnot. Like, you can achieve that, but there's a lot of nitty-gritty that goes into that. And I think at the moment, right, being intentional about, hey, you do have to set that up, you do have to provide those links, and that it's coming, but like not overselling it and being kind of upfront and honest is something that I think will drive trust in the industry, and is a balance that I think we're seeing many industry experts kind of struggle with. We often, when we talk to a partner, right, we've heard them say, well, can you do this thing that's on a roadmap, 5-10 years from now? And it's like, eventually, sure, but for now, let's focus on what can happen today and actually deliver on something that a user wants. And they don't care how it happens, right? They just want it to happen and to happen reliably, so that, as Steve was saying, you don't have that one person in the household that's the only person that can manage your, home automation system.
Yeah, you bring up so many good points there, particularly around products just working and doing what they say they're supposed to do. And so, Roeland, I wanted to see if you wanted to jump in here. Any comments to jump on top of what Matt just said?
So we're active in a smart home camera and video doorbell domain. So I can add some insights there. So what we're seeing, and I think everyone who is active in this domain knows this, but AI features are getting bundled now with cloud storage. So to make these monthly subscriptions more attractive. Providing cloud storage alone for a few dollars per month is just not sufficient anymore. But we have to find more ways to provide more value, or new ways to provide more value to users, and make the subscriptions more attractive for consumers. And bundling AI features with cloud storage is one way to do this. So smart home cameras today, just one way that AI features can provide more value is that these smart home cameras today just generate far too many irrelevant events and notifications. So users just simply turn them off and stop interacting with the app because it's just too annoying. And you can imagine, if you then have 3 or 4 cameras in and around the home, you get 3 times more irrelevant notifications. So 3 times more annoyance. So let's say you're washing your car in your driveway for 20 minutes. Today, you can easily, after you've washed your car, you see 8 notifications on your phone screen, on your lock screen. None of those events are interesting to you. We call this the boy who cried wolf effect, where users get so many notifications that they don't care about it and turn off the notifications. But at the same time, if a stranger is lurking in your front yard at 3 a.m. in the night, you definitely want to know that. So I think one way to provide real value to users is when smart home cameras and doorbells only provide you with the info that's actually relevant for you at the right moments. So yeah, also today, if you open your smart home camera app or your doorbell app, you see a long timeline that is cluttered with irrelevant events. I just don't think that makes sense. But if you look at Facebook or Instagram and then you open that app, you see those posts first at the top of your screen that matters, or that most likely will matter the most for you. And I think that's we'll see something similar to the apps in the smart home camera and video doorbell domain over the next few years.
Well, and we're tracking doorbells at 20% adoption right now. And so that means about 24 million households in the US who have internet have a smart doorbell. Lots and lots of room still to grow. And, you know, consumers really do understand the value of a camera and a doorbell at this point with the video feed. And so that video is becoming really a high priority for everybody to have, to know what's going on. And then the AI, of course, becoming incredibly important for all the things you just noted there, Roeland. We're also seeing cameras being used in all sorts of other ways. And so, Jeff, would love to hear you jump in and share some of your thoughts on, you know, AI being a tool. And I mean, your whole business here is built off of that. So share a little bit more on where you see this going and some of the changes that have happened, particularly with the market in the sense of it being ready to, you know, and a willingness to pay for these kinds of technologies.
Thanks for the opportunity. I think before I get into that, so I'll just quickly show you guys the product we're building. You know, it's a camera device, and the difference is that this is specialized in using and monitoring food inside the fridge environment. It has to overcome a lot of challenges like low temperature and like no Wi-Fi signals. So quite a task to do. And that's just the first step, like taking the image itself. And after that, you have to use a bunch of algorithms and then whatever like software capabilities to enable image recognition. I mean, everybody thinks as like you have to build a powerful model and then recognize items. It's just a matter of how powerful that model is. But we end up having an assembly of multiple different models working at the same time. It's actually way more complicated than we thought it would be. And the reason we're building this is we see there's a trend in the market that a camera as a solution, like the Ring Bell, probably the most popular ones. And then you start to see cameras, security cameras around your house, and with one more camera inside, like oven to monitor your food, and then to adjust the cooking temperature and so on and so forth. And now with the camera inside the fridge, introduced by Samsung, LG, and multiple other appliance manufacturers, the point is to help users see what they have in their fridge to reduce food waste, and also they also hope that they can do automatic inventory management. So clearly there's a market need for this. The challenge is it's really difficult to do, and just by thinking about how messy your fridge is, you can imagine like how difficult that is. But we're really happy that we're pretty close to launch the product in March, and I think there is something out there for us. I agree with what Matt mentioned, that a lot of companies try to sell the roadmap instead of the actual product. So, especially for a company who's trying to build a brand new product in this category, like, literally we can't just copycat anyone's product in the market right now because there isn't any. So it's very it's very tentative to sell the roadmap, telling users how great it is. And then the danger of that is when you sell the roadmap, yet you can't achieve it, and then you tend to kill the product, right? Like when you launch it, users going to use it, and then they find it's not what you said. They're gonna be disappointed. For us, it's entire business. So the go-to-market strategy for us is like the key. We tend to choose beta users and then do the test and then collect feedbacks. When everything's more like a slow rollout process. Yeah, so hopefully I can share more information further down the line.
Yeah, no, that's great. And congratulations on the launch at CES and the product coming out in March. A lot of what you're talking about also centers the conversation around the data. And I think everybody here has a vested interest in data. I want to go back to you, Eran, and see, we know that you're collecting a lot of very sensitive data. So of course you have to be HIPAA compliant and all these things around data security and privacy, but maybe you can comment just on the value of all that data and how it's being utilized, especially if you're thinking about treatment plans or really working to help people in their daily lives. And then I think probably a number of you could be talking on the role of data. So I'd like to kind of go around on this question.
So for us, it's not even a question mark, right? Like I don't have a business if I won't have very high strict, cyber capabilities and HIPAA compliant. Like again, it's an integral part from the day the company started. I do think there's a very high potential to improve outcomes by quantifying processes that until now was almost impossible to quantify. Ask yourself, how do you pick a physical therapist today, or how do you pick a psychologist or a social worker or occupational therapist? Usually it's the answer that you'll get is, I heard that guy is good. Someone told me that they're, and we need to move forward to a point where we can actually see results of our clinicians and data for the clinic, that we can say, okay, this clinic is outperforming that clinic, and here are different type of measurements that we can compare as a consumer before making a decision where to go to receive treatment. The problem is that they have so many systems and everything is very fragmented, and it's very hard to quantify progress in different types of situations. And again, we believe that one of the big impact that the spatial computing era will bring is that suddenly you can measure a lot of things that until now was basically impossible to measure. If just to give you an example, we are measuring every time someone is putting a VR headset on, range of motion, response time, smoothness, peak velocity, eye tracking, respiratory, pain scores, anxiety, stress. Like every time someone is putting a VR headset on, they're stepping into a virtual reality treatment room. But the beautiful thing about that virtual treatment room, besides the fact it can be fun and engaging and not boring, we're getting a snapshot about their outcomes. And now the clinician can actually see how the trends looks like. They can compare and assess how those things will supposed to behave, intervene when needed, and maybe not intervene when it's not needed. So there's a lot of things that I think this data analysis will bring to the table, but it's on us to make sure that consumers and patients are feeling comfortable that we are sharing this data for their benefit with their clinicians, not to monetize it in order to do other stuff with it, right? So there's a lot of things that you have to do if you want to use the data the right way.
Yeah.
And so what you're talking about is taking a lot of different pieces of information or data and then be able to look at them together and then have some new value there that's created. And we see that across the board with connected devices. I know Steve with Alarm.com and the Cherish announcement at CES and all that Alarm.com does in terms of the platform, it really is bringing it all down for the end customer in a simple, easy, engaging experience. And so, I don't know if you want to touch a little bit more on the value of that data that Alarm.com, all that's coming along with the platform, and how that's leveraged to really enhance and build the experience for the consumer or the end user.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So look, Eran and Roland's last 2 points, you're collecting a whole bunch of data about what people are looking at in a headset, which is not something people even know you can collect, right? And they trust you to protect that data. On the other side, Roeland, you made the point about you look at Facebook or Instagram where you get feeds that are most useful to you. It's most useful to you and to those providers because they know they make the most money off those clicks. So they have a business model tied to monetizing that data for their purposes. Companies like ours would be out of business if we monetize that kind of data. You can imagine all the information that goes on in a home. We know when someone's there. We know when you're in your car. We know when a door opens. We know when a motion sensor fires. That data is very private and very important information that we lock down. In fact, we don't even give that information to many of the people in our company. We have a dedicated team, the only team allowed to look at it. Even our CEO can't see that data. So it's very important to protect that, but it's also important to turn that into products that help the consumer. One of the ways we do that is we tend to build a model on every home. Because we have all that data, we kind of learn what's normal for the patterns of behavior in a home. And then even if your system is not armed, we'll alert you to a trend that doesn't look right for you. So for instance, if your bedroom window opens at 2 a.m, something that typically doesn't happen, we don't know if that's you going out to get a breath of fresh air or an evildoer trying to get in, but we do know that's not normal for your home, and we alert you to it. You can imagine all the other things that these connected systems can do if they can talk to each other. And it's one of the benefits of what we try to do is connect them all together, protect all the data, and provide real services that you have a hard time living without.
Great comments there. Matt, did you?
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead, Roeland. Yeah.
Just to clarify what I meant with the Facebook and Instagram analogy, it's just they've done a very good job at showing the most relevant content at the top. I absolutely don't think smart home cameras companies or video doorbell companies should try to monetize the data. I don't think that's a good idea. I do think you should leverage it.
I'm sorry, I think you need in a world where that might happen.
Yeah. So I do think you make a good point that a company like Alarm.com has so much relevant sort of higher level data that can be used to improve the user experience and safety for the end user. Yeah.
Well, and I've got a quick question from our audience here. So our data does end up showing that consumers trust the security players, and trust is this really important word along with reliability. But do you think that the security industry has been slow to capitalize on that strength? And so that could go to Matt, Roeland, or Steve, I think, as best responders there. Steve, I don't know if you want to start.
Yeah, it's funny. I think Parks asked a question 3 or 4 years ago about the connected home and the healthcare services that might be offered on top of other things you're already providing. And the question was, where would you go to find these services? And I think the answer was like a senior consultant, which I think was your top line, which didn't exist in the world that we live in. And then the second one was your home security provider. And I think it's a privilege to be considered as the provider of services like this because you already trust them to protect you. And if you think about it, the only service that a company like ours is providing is to make sure we've got your back when things are bad. And that's what you want when things go poorly. So in the home health arena, and the reason why we're so excited about the trends there and the things we did with Cherish is we want to produce products that extend that bubble of safety beyond just your home to people you care about that aren't living with you in all the other facets and walks of life that you care about. And at the end of the day, when you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, doorbell cameras and basically any camera is way up at the top of problem solving. What we're trying to sell is safety. And safety as a service is, if you could bubble it in one category, is the thing people can't imagine their life without. And they want to know they're protected. So everything we mentioned up to now, including the data, is important for companies like ours to protect.
Absolutely. Matt, you want to jump in?
No, I think, yeah, to your point about the protection of that data and the use of it in responsible ways, that's, a really important part of, everything from the Ivani side, right? We're enabling occupancy sensing across, millions to tens of millions of devices at the click of a button. Now, we're doing that through OEM partners with local library files where they have no means of getting any data to us, right? So Ivani has backed down of having a cloud because that means that there's nowhere for someone to send the data. There's nowhere for a data breach to take place, right? It has to be within a trusted partner's ecosystem. And that really helps alleviate consumer concerns about where the data goes and what that can be done. For us, we look at what we enable for partners is, they've been selling widgets, so light bulbs, switches, outlets, routers, stuff like that. And at the click of a button, you can turn those into something that can be the basis for a security system, for a home awareness solution, right? And then that can be integrated into a broader context based on systems knowing how to talk to each other, which is, I think, a really important role that standards like Matter or security providers such as Alarm.com, ADT, Residio, etc., right? They can all play a role as kind of those trusted higher levels. And by looking at the data coming out of the various subsystems, where each subsystem plays a part, right? Like you wouldn't use an Ivani Sensify detection area to detect what's going on in a small closet. You'd put a PIR there. You wouldn't use us to figure out what's going on at the front door. You've got a video doorbell, right? If you want video verification, obviously we don't do anything video wise. And I think it's the combination of all the parts, which there's an education gap, but also just a knowledge of what's in the space where an overall better integrated solution set will achieve the best performance outcome for any given consumer. And so there's a lot of pieces kind of working together and coming together. And for me, right, I know this space really well. I can build a really great solution for myself, but to get to that tipping point where it all comes together, there need to be better tools, better trusted players to bring those pieces together intelligently for the best outcome for a specific use case for a specific individual. And that's going to be a real challenge for everyone going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the partnerships are a requirement, and it seems like the industry has completely woken up to that fact, and working many companies working in lots of different areas to build those bridges across ecosystems, and sometimes even with each other, or even competitors. So that co-opetition is very interesting. I wanted to see, does Jeff or Roeland, did you want to have any comments on the role of data before we talk a little bit about the requirements for support, which was the next topic? So Jeff, did you want to jump in here?
Yeah, sure. So data plays a very important role in terms of our algorithm and product. For us, it's it's about like using this we're dealing with a very specific type of data, like the fridge images, like all your pantry images. Those are not widely available on the internet. And for any AI system to work, you need to find the better data you have, the better outcome you might have. So we use this data to train our model. And given the situation about like OpenAI and other companies, the way they're doing or improve their product is to scrape all the data, basically in the internet, like any data they can scrape, they can use that to train their AI models. And for us, we really see this as a strength, is the more private data you get, and then more specific model that you can train. So, I would say that OpenAI can do a lot of things like really well, but when it comes to recognizing this fridge image, like individual items level, it's not doing as good as we are. You might ask, why is that important? What I think is when you have a humanoid robot in your home, like you ask it, get me some like beer from what can't name a brand. So this robot needs to go to the fridge and open it and use a computer vision system to recognize this item and get it for you. So it's just a very narrow specific use case for computer vision, and data is everything in this particular case. So yeah, I think we value it very much. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and certainly being able to help build the algorithms and the predictiveness of the future built off of existing data, that historical data set. We at Parks Associates, we're a big believer in the historical data set helping lead the way and understanding the future, which is one reason why we think our data holds so much value on the consumer data side, because we can see across decades of time how these products and solutions have grown up in those inflection points. Before we go on to support, Roeland, did you want to comment on data, or you want to lead us into any comments on how all of this connected hardware has new requirements for support and what's that going to be looking like? So feel free to jump in on the data side or support, whatever you'd like to.
Yeah, so just quickly on data. So we train our AI models, we obviously need lots of data, really lots and lots of data. So both images and videos. So we have our own data sets, more than 30 million images and videos, really high quality, collected really for this purpose, for the smart home camera and video doorbell purpose. But then at the same time, we also see that OEMs, so the smart home camera and video doorbell OEMs, they also have a lot of their own internal data, and they see that as strategic and want to leverage it. So there, for those customers, we enable them to fine tune our already trained models on their data, and we do that completely in their environments, their development environments, to fine tune those models for their specific camera characteristics, camera positions, and sometimes there are specific use cases that they're trying to solve. Yeah.
And maybe you can comment also on your decision making with the companies who are embedding your AI tech into their hardware. I mean, are you evaluating those hardware manufacturers in terms of how they use data? Does that come into the discussion over who you're working with, depending on what they might do with data or not?
So we're trying to help them to build a full solution that is also privacy compliant in the US and all the relevant states, and all states have evolving and different legislation on this. So we try to help them where they should be running what, when they should be running it on device, when they can run it in the cloud, which component from the whole solution they should be running on device, where images should be stored, all these different components.
Yeah. So that's a big priority then.
Yeah.
Okay. Any comments on the support side, and how hardware now is hard to exist and be connected without the support, right? Things don't work, or they stop working, and so then what? Roeland, is that anything you want to comment on, or we could also jump over to Steve, perhaps?
I think Steve has a stronger opinion on this.
I love this question, Elizabeth. Look, our whole company is B2B to C, because we go through a dealer who then has the relationship with the consumers, because things sometimes need that kind of support. When you think about a typical home, even beyond the smart home, our homes are Venn diagrams of electrical systems, plumbing systems, heating systems, entertainment systems, and any one of those things breaks, most humans can't figure it out. I'm actually a victim of this week. I came home from CES and our heater wasn't working. What was surprising that during the whole time I was at CES, I kept getting notifications through my alarm.com app that my heating system might be on the brink. And because some of our dealers aren't heating experts, they're smart home installers, they have a relationship with our HVAC systems to actually connect to a pro who can then service that for them. Inside baseball, a lot of our dealers didn't want to install thermostats because they didn't want to answer the phone call. So now they have a solution to do all that. And it's just sort of a leading indicator for the complexity of the smart home and the need for professionals that kind of do this and understand it for you. My biggest fear, my wife's biggest fear, is are people still coming out of school know how to do plumbing and electrical and heating? Or are we going to be in a world where we just won't have those service providers anymore? I hope not, but who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting. I do want to get back to Eran on his comments with the AI psychologist, but we'll leave that here towards the end. Matt, did you have any comments on support that you wanted to add in, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, one of the comments from a fellow panelist at CES, Keith from Ivani, mentioned that, one system plus another system should be worth more than the individual sum of the parts, right? And he said 1 + 1 = 5, but it's basically how big can you make that number when you put stuff together? And I think articulating what pieces of systems are complementary to each other and how they fit together, and avoiding the idea that kind of one system or one technology can do it all, is, I think, a really important thing we've got in the current environment, right? You want stuff that is best in class in each area to solve specific needs, and then that all gets put together. And I think for the DIY crowd that is kind of the current smart home user, I think there is a group of people that are pretty good at that. Not amazing, but they're getting there. And then you've got the professional crowd that I think is well suited. Your alarm.coms, your dealers, your ADTs, Vivants, etc. They can put together solutions as groups of best in class and use all the stuff for what it's built for, and then combine it to be better than the sum of its parts, right? If you're from a context perspective, you can do like facial recognition, detecting what phones are home, etc. for like this like known class of detection, right? And then you've got this unknown class of detection where you've got activity typically done with, RF sensing, PIRs. You can do that with cameras as well, right? And by combining those two pieces of information, right? If I get a PIR alert, but a known phone is home, right? That's probably somebody that forgot to disarm the system. If I get a contact sensor that goes off and I have no indication that anyone who's supposed to be in the home is anywhere nearby, that's probably something's going on. But if it's just a contact sensor and there's nothing that goes off in the house, maybe it's a lower level alarm. And there's efforts within the security industry with like AVS-01 to kind of standardize those alerts so you get law enforcement response. And the overall kind of ecosystem of the systems engineering behind different pieces, how they combine the architecture thereof, is going to be, I think, really interesting in the next several years.
Well, yeah, and it's that use of all that data to have additional context and really understand how to make the best outcome. And I mean, we're seeing this, certainly this is going to impact people beyond their single family homes or their multifamily apartments, right? This is our local community. These are the police who have to respond. If we're talking about security, it could be doctors who are being responsive and they have the ability to have a prioritization of different patients and understanding who needs help the most right now over somebody else who maybe can wait a little bit longer, may not be in such dire need. And it does come back to this idea of AI getting infused in everywhere. And so, Eran, I want to go back to you on the question of, the regulation around AI and how things might look if we're putting a headset on and now we're talking to a therapist and a therapist is listening and helping us manage our life problems or whatever is going on for that individual. Maybe it's your health, your personal health care, and figuring out how to manage the best treatment plan based on your own personal data, right? Which is different than all this clinical data that's out there. Of course, that's great, aggregated information on average outcomes based off of whatever information is available. But when you can then personalize it and get an outcome for that individual person with all this information, it's so powerful. So, Eran, I'd love to hear more from you on where AI is going to take us in healthcare with outcomes, and then we can move to the other panelists.
So I think that on the technology side, I don't think there's really a debate whether or not we can get to that level of technology. I think now with the AI that we are all experiencing, it's easy to imagine how this will look like, right? You want to have the AI recommending a treatment based on all the historical data that he is able to capture far better than a human can, and also take and aggregate all the data that he accumulate based on your behavior, preferences, and recovery. I do think in healthcare it will be very hard to cross the chasm of regulation liabilities, and it's like I think it's very similar when I'm comparing the two to autonomous driving. You cannot allow yourself to be 99% right. Like once you have 1% of any type of non-compliant type of treatment, that could lead to very bad results on the therapeutic side. So I think that's one problem we'll need to tackle as an industry. The second piece is the entire reimbursement, as I mentioned previously. Even though there are a lot of effort in the US to shift from the fee-for-service to something more of a value-based care, it's still, we're talking about maybe less than 5% of the market. So think about it, that the entire industry is incentivized by the number of procedures and the amount of time the clinician is actually doing. This is how the market is behaving. And now suddenly you need to convince payers and organizations to just use AI and not use clinicians at all, or to reduce the amount of time, meaning that by definition, if we won't solve the economical incentives, the revenue will actually decline instead of going up, right? So there's a lot of complexity that I think will emerge not on the technology side, but also but more of how you implement that into the systems, into workflows, with liabilities and different types of other limitations, like, as I'm telling my team, all the non-sexy stuff, like to have an AI clinician psychologist that is actually doing a good treatment, we can get to that relatively fast, but all the other stuff will be very hard.
Well, and in this idea that we have competing interests over our healthcare versus money as a consumer is very concerning. Also, if you see private equity jumping in the game directly with healthcare, that's a flag. I'd be concerned, right? Are they prioritizing money over health? And if you look at the $90 billion profits we've got going on in pharma, there's good reason for everybody to be looking closely at how doctors are operating and the why behind it. So it's very interesting. And, Eran, really loves some of the things that you're doing with technology that, it's really about the outcome of helping somebody in the end. And of course, the money has to be there to figure that out. And so we'll be watching along with many others, tracking these markets, particularly in healthcare. We've got a very quick ending question for you all, because it's amazing how quickly an hour can go by and our time is up. But I do want to see if you can briefly, in 30 seconds or less, respond to the question of what you see the biggest challenge in 2024, and it can be a broad view or very specific, and you're not allowed to say what somebody else said. So Roeland, we're going to start with you, and then we'll go to Steve after that. Eran, Jeff, and Matt will end with you.
Sure. So I think it's around AI. So the image sensor, I think, is such a powerful sensor, both for safety, so to really understand what's going on, but also for making a home appliance personalized, from your TV to your coffee machine, etc. So I think we'll need to deploy a lot of cameras in and around the home. so that we can provide that value to the end user, to the consumer. And yeah, that can just only be done with cameras. But then lots of cameras in and around your home raises privacy concerns. So option one is to not stream the video at all and just process everything locally. But option two, that we're seeing more and more in the market, is for some devices where the users do want to be able to see the camera feed or do want to store it. Promising way to address those concerns then is with end-to-end encryption. But then to still be able to provide all these AI features, you have to run the AI locally on the device instead of the cloud. I think that's a big switch, big movement that we're going to see this year.
Okay, great. Thanks for those comments. Steve, go ahead.
Being an optimist, I can't answer a pessimistic question like that at the end, but let me give you both sides of it. I think the negative downside that we have to worry about this year is separating real from fake, which we've already had issues for in fake news over the last couple of years, but now it's gotten to a whole new level with generative AI, and it's actually really hard to know what's real. My dad has been victimized by somebody saying he's my son, calling him to get money from him, and on the phone it sounded like my son. They can actually make it really sound just like my son. So I'm worried about that. On the flip side, I think going back to the AI to help in your smart home, we, as Eran mentioned at the beginning, we live in a 3D world. The very first computers were trying to replicate that with desktops and trash cans. I think we're also very vocal people, and we want to use our voice to control things. So I think AI is going to help the smart home replace the remote control with just our intent of what we want, and have it figure out what we need and work with all the different systems to make that a reality. Finally, putting the one person who knows how to use the smart home out of business.
Okay, great comments. Eran?
So for us, I think in startup land, as long as the interest rate will remain high, it makes innovation, and progression harder. Because we do need to invest in our future, and usually it doesn't yield immediate returns. I think this year, to balance those two things in startup land, I think that will be the most difficult thing. But again, to end on an optimistic note, I do think there's a lot of technologies that are getting to a tipping point and maturity that will change productivity and will change how we're interacting with computers. So I'm very optimistic about this year.
Okay, thanks for those comments. Jeff, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I think for myself and for our company, the challenge is to grow the profits. So I think one thing that we have seen is startups needs to rely on generating its own rather than on the VC funding. It's been particularly true in the past couple of years. So that is for us. I think for all of us, one challenge that I really concern about is the geopolitical tension, and the world is not as safe as we grow up. So I think that's just one challenge for all of us.
Yep. Great comments there. Matt?
Yeah, I think for us, we look at kind of 2024 as a year where there'll be a huge amount of the RF sensing technology deployed in the world. And yeah, the biggest challenge, I think, is overcoming the stigma that it's this fanciful, magical thing that can't work based on some of what we've seen from the industry. And I think moving past the idea that we have to describe how the sausage is made and just prove that it works, right? Like, does a consumer care if it's AI behind the engine that picks up their face? No, they just care that it picked up their face. And I think that focus on kind of consumer outcomes and away from the AI bingo game, I think is going to be something that I think is going to be really important and a challenge to overcome, because it's so attractive to be so proud of. Again, as a technologist, I love how stuff works, and I could go on and on about how stuff works and all that fun stuff. But at the end of the day, it either works or it doesn't, and that's the bottom line. And I think that focus is going to be a big deal going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your thoughts on what you're seeing. And we appreciate your valuable time, and I hope to see you in person again soon.